A judge ordered a 17-year-old girl to spend 24 days behind bars and made her appear in court, get this, in a cage, all because she didn't show up for 2 hearings regarding her own rape. She didn't show up. Prosecutors were forced to drop the charges, which have now been refiled. So, isn't it normal for a victim to be afraid to face her rapist, her victimizer? Wouldn't that be something that we hear that all the time, the rapes aren't reported because people don't want to come forward. If they knew they might be caged and thrown into jail, I think it's going to cause more people to stay at home and not report these things. This young woman was allegedly abducted and attacked by this man who's accused of raping another woman. And tonight, the 17-year-old victim is free, but she herself has to wear a GPS monitor just to keep an eye on her in case they need her again. So, this is clearly re-traumatizing the victim. Or is this just something the judge needs to do to take the desperate measures to get an alleged violent serial predator off the street? Joining me to discuss this, host of Last Shot with Judge Gunn, Judge Marianne Gunn, and sex crimes prosecutor Stacey Honowitz, HLN host Jane Velez Mitchell. Jane, what do you think about this? Is this just more of the war on women?
Yes, this is an absolute outrage, Dr. Drew, and obviously these are decisions made by men who have never been raped. I've been in jail, not myself, but to do interviews. I've been in prison. It's the most suffocating, alienating institution that there is, and you can't wait to get out after a couple of hours. This young lady was held in there for weeks. Why? Because she had the misfortune of being allegedly raped by this monster. I understand her fear. What if he's found not guilty? Who's going to protect her? This is a thug. He's 220 pounds. He's got a giant swastika tattooed on his chest. He's a scary guy. Is the government going to give her protection? And if so, how long? There are plenty of reasons for women in this culture to be afraid of testifying, and that has to be respected. There's got to be a better way than sticking her in jail. How about putting her in a hotel with an armed guard? That I'd be willing to pay for as a taxpayer.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. It probably costs less, frankly. And I think those of you that are watching that footage while Jane was speaking would see that cage we showed. That was not the prison. That was the cage she had to appear in court in. Judge Gunn, this is a difficult issue. Doesn't Jane raise some important points here?
Sure she does. Sure she does. Everyone feels very sorry for this young girl, including the judge, by the way, Jane. But the fact of the matter is, this is not about men versus women. This is about a key witness appearing in court to testify against an alleged serial rapist. Remember, they had to drop the charges against him the first time. They can't do it again. And the judge ordered that she be incarcerated because there wasn't any other way to get her to appear in court. Now, she missed 2 court appearances. If no one else can take the step, no one else can take the step to force her to appear in court except the judge. Prosecutor can't make her come, and the defense attorney can't make her come. The only person that can issue that order is the judge. And he was faced with the decision of having a key witness in a horrible case that he could not get in the courtroom on the days of trial. And so he did what he had no other choice to do, in my opinion. And his knuckles were probably white when he was doing it.
Okay, fair enough. Stacey Honowitz, you're a supervisor in the sex crimes unit. How do we reconcile these conflicting interests? How do we do this?
Well, they are conflicting interests, and I appreciate what everyone's saying, but I think to make a blanket statement that women shouldn't come forward and testify because they're afraid of retaliation. I mean, you really, really shut down the system. If that's the case, then you let all the rapists go free. And what happens, Dr. Drew, is quite often when we don't have a witness, I'm on the air a couple nights later and people are asking me, why did this rapist get such a great deal? It's because I didn't have a witness to go forward. So there has to be a way to reconcile. Many times witnesses say to us, we don't want to come in, and you do have to weigh each case on its own merit. You can't make a blanket statement as to all cases. But we do have reluctant women that don't want to come in rape cases, and you do have to try to instill in them what the importance of coming in is. And so there has to be an easier way than caging them.
Jane, I'm back around to you. You see how difficult this is. Where are you going to take it?
Well, I I never made a blanket statement that women shouldn't testify against their alleged rapists. All I'm saying is that there are more civilized ways of protecting them and encouraging them to testify and assuring them that they will be safe. Again, there were plenty of alternatives. That's why the young lady, the 17-year-old, has ultimately been released with a GPS monitoring device and is being held at an undisclosed location that we know is only not a jail. What I find offensive is jailing her. If you want her to testify, by all means, do everything you can to encourage her, but keep her safe in an area where she doesn't get re-traumatized, where she's not sent a message that, oh, she did something wrong. And this is the message that our culture sends. When a woman reports a rape, sometimes they're disbelieved. Often they're told subliminally or outright that they somehow brought it upon themselves. And so what horrible metaphor for all of that dysfunction is keeping a young woman who is a rape victim in jail.
Yeah, Janie, great point, which that victims often have antecedent histories of trauma. They already expect people not to be trustworthy, and they expect people to blame them for their own rape, which people oblige by doing very often. Believe it or not, even people close to that person. All four of us are very aware that's a common thing. And the other issue here, Judge Gunn, I want to go to you on this, and Jane brings up an interesting point, is that these women who have been traumatized earlier and now are severely traumatized by the rape often have PTSD, are often very sensitive to what happens in their environment. These are exactly the population you don't want to throw into prison, as Jane says. So my question to Judge Gunn is, are there other remedies? Now we hear of a GPS system. Is that what should be done? Is that going to work? Or is that just not sufficiently predictive that you're going to get the witness in court?
Well, we hope, obviously, Dr. Drew, that GPS system is going to work for this young teen. And she's 17 years old, but she has to understand that a court order to appear as a witness in a trial has got to be obeyed. Now, I understand that the victim's Bill of Rights is incredibly protective of the victim, and that she be treated fairly throughout the course of the judicial process, but she can't be excluded from it. And there are other things that we need to look to, like she could testify in a secluded area where only her voice was in the courtroom. There are other things that judge may be able to do to calm her fears. And of course, it's not going to be therapeutic for her, for this young girl at least, to be in the courtroom looking at that gentleman, remembering the swastika on his chest. How awful.
Stacey,
but it's a tragic
Stacey, I have 30 seconds. Yes, it is. That's why we're trying to grapple with it. But Stacey, I have 30 seconds. I'm going to give you last word.
Look, the bottom line is you have to weigh the rights of the victim versus letting a serial rapist out on the street. And you have to figure out a proper way to get that person in. You're never going to alleviate their fears, but at least make them feel safe and feel protected. Being in the jail system for that young lady is not the way to go, and we have to find a better way. And then they won't be fearful to come into court.